So we're just going to look at where next for the UK state pension based on the data released from the OBR, which is their forecast of CPI data. So that's their forecast for inflation. And this gives us a good steer in terms of the likely direction of the increases of the state pension. So just as a quick recap, the new state pension currently in this tax year is £9,339. That's based on 35 qualifying years. If you reach state pension age before April 2016, then you're likely on the old basic state pension, which is currently £7,155. As a reminder, the triple lock was suspended for the tax year 2022 to 23, which is the next tax year, and the triple lock being the greater of CPI or average earnings or 2.5%. Now, because of the triple lock suspension for next tax year, it means that only two of those, we've actually reduced it, or the government's put it down to a double lock. They took out the average earnings figure because that was seen as a bit of an anomaly because of the lockdown that occurred, and therefore they considered that was a large degree because of a high amount of volatility within the average earnings figure. So the average earnings figure was stripped out of the triple lock, which meant that we were just left with CPI or 2.5%. Now CPI came in at 3.1%, and the other figure is 2.5%. So therefore they're going to use the greater of those. So basically the state pension is going up by 3.1%. So here we just have the breakdown of the OBR CPI forecast. So this is for 2022, and you can just see the breakdown here. So it's by quarter, so you've got 5.8% in the first quarter, 7.7% in the second, third quarter is 7.5%, and they've got it peaking at 8.7% in the fourth quarter of 22, which is quite staggering. 8.7% potential CPI inflation for that quarter. Now, bearing in mind that some public sector pension schemes are still linked to RPI. RPI typically runs at 2 to 3% higher than CPI. Then potentially for certainly some final salary pension schemes, for some public sector pension schemes that are linked to RPI still, there's going to be some pretty big increases there. But the figure that we're looking at as far as the state pension is concerned is 7.5%. So that'd be a 7.5% increase. And that is obviously for the tax year 23 to 24. And I'll have a look at what that looks like as far as a number is concerned, because that's likely going to be the biggest cash amount increase that the state pension will ever have seen so far. And then we can roll that forward into 23 when we see the OBR is forecasting that the inflation starts to come down. So then 8.1, 3.5, and again, that would be the increased figure that we'll be looking at there, 3.4% as far as the state pension is concerned. So if we put that into our table, we can actually have a look at what that looks like as far as real numbers is concerned. Now what I've done here is just taken those numbers and put it into our table so we can have a look at it, what it looks like comparing 1 year to the next. Now I fully appreciate for those individuals, we're looking at a 3.1% increase in the next tax year. Now that really isn't much of a consolation when inflation is running clearly a far higher amount than that. So for the next 12 months, there's no two ways about it. And again, when we look at the OBR numbers, we can see there's a big hit to discretionary disposable income as far as individuals are concerned. In theory, obviously with that bigger increase in 23-24 on the state pension, then potentially some of that is made up, but it's a little bit later in the day, clearly. But if we put those numbers in, we can see for obviously current tax year 21-22, and I've broken down this into weekly. And so we'll just look at the yearly figures down below here. So the weekly figures, which is typically how state pension is stated, just times that number by 52 to obviously give you your yearly amount below. So 21-22, new state pension 9,300, basic 7,100. We increase that by 3.1% for the next tax year 22 to 23, just coming up. So that goes up to 9,600 for the new state pension, and obviously basic 7,300 for there. And then 23 to 24, this is where we see this forecasted 7.5% increase, which is to say would be historically the biggest cash increase that we've seen in the state pension. That would bring the basic state pension up to 7,930, and the new state pension would go over £10,000 to £10,350. We can then take it out a bit further than that, again based on the OBR forecasts, 24 to 25. It'll be interesting to see how close the OBR is with that forecast, whether inflation does indeed start to come down for that period of time. Again, basic state pension £8,200, and then the new state pension at £10,700. So we're heading well up towards £11,000 per year state pension. Now, as I mentioned, I think the next coming 12 months will be the toughest, some of the toughest on record for pensioners. There really wasn't anything in the spring statement for pensioners at all. There obviously was the already announced £150 off council tax bills for those in properties bands A to D. There'll also be the £200 energy bill in the autumn, but that'll have to be repaid over the coming 5 years. And there's also a £500 million hardship fund, which is potentially going to be some sort of means tested fund, which will be run by a local authority. But again, I think the next 12 months is going to be incredibly difficult given where inflation is, where it's headed, and clearly with that 3.1% increase on the state pension is well below that amount.